Okay, so the first thing we see when we log on to our workforce management is our overall company dashboard that gives us all of our alerts and things that we need to pay a note of. And it also tells us across the company who is actually working at the moment, who has been rostered to work and who has finished work for the day. And we have these little widgets down here that compare the current week to the previous week as far as hours, count of employees and employee costs go. We can also see the amount of time that our employees are actually on time, late or haven't shown up. Because we haven't got any clocking on and off happening regularly on our system, it does say that we had 74 people not show up to work, but hopefully that is not the case for Momentum. At the top left-hand corner, we have something similar to the company and tenant drop-down that you have in Advance. So we can switch in here in between different branches. Based upon your access, you may only have one or more branches that you can access within the workforce management. So that is restricted by employee security. So if I jump into the receiving branch, you can see that automatically it's dropped down the requests for an expense, and we've now only got 15 timesheets and we have 22 shifts that haven't been published yet. It also then shows you only employees that are on shift in the current branch. If I drop down to Melbourne, we'll see that straight away nobody is currently working in Melbourne. And then all of these metrics change depending on which company you're actually in. So the biggest feature, I think, for advanced payroll users in particular would be the onboarding. So onboarding, as you know, in advance is quite a time-consuming process. By the time you've added an employee card, then created the pay details, it is quite a long process. So in the workforce management, we can actually put that data entry into the employee's hands, and they go through a really simple process on a web browser or on a phone, and they fill in all of that information that you would normally have to populate in several places in advanced payroll. So if I enter in some details here. What we're doing here is sending the employee an invitation to fill out a form to apply for, to fill out their information for a role that we've offered them. We can select any position from this drop-down list. So we might put in finance manager, working at our Melbourne dispatch, and they're going to be a manager. So that permission group level just allows them to log on to the workforce management, and if they are at a manager level and they have employees underneath their management, they'll be able to see those employees' details and to be able to see their roster and timesheets. Make it full-time on 150,000 a year. 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. You can choose who they are reporting to, which anyone from this list, and their commencement date, which we'll put down as next week. So there are custom documents that you can upload into each individual invitation. So if you had a particular contract that was specific to the employee, you would upload that during the onboarding process. But we also have what we call onboarding profiles, whereby you may have a copy of a workplace agreement or an award that goes with a particular type of role. You can have as many onboarding templates as you like. They can have custom messages in the body of those. They can have custom documents attached to them. And then you still get the option of adding this individual document for your employee as well. So if we send that off. So we'll wait for that email to come through. And while we do that, won't do that until I actually select someone. This is like when you type something wrong on a form and they take all your credit card details out. Manager. I've done all of that for me. That's good. Just open this in a different tab and check out onboarding. So you can view the onboarding status. So in the case where we've just taken a look at the onboarding there and we've sent the form off. So it says here that it has actually invited. So it said that it didn't complete, but it did complete. So we don't need to go back and do that again. So if we go into our onboarding profiles, you can see we've only got one in here, and we've got a custom message that goes out with these placeholders, which are listed down the side, that just give an introductory message. It's pretty generic, but it will replace the company and the branch, their role, salary, start date, etc. And then this is where we would upload their award or their EBA, and then you can have just a statement or footer at the bottom regarding confidentiality. You can then just go through and add as many of these profiles as you like. So if you had a different profile for each type of employee, then we would add in all of those different profiles for you. And then you would just select which profile you're actually doing based upon the actual employee positions. So these can be applicable to a location or to an individual position within the company. Okay, so we've got our onboarding email. So as the employee, we now go through this process here to say that, yes, this is the information that I've got, that's my role, and I agree to start this process. Going to gather my information and I give consent for that to be used by the company. So we have the option of requiring an identification document and proof of residency status. So they are optional. In this case, I'm just going to say that, yes, I am a citizen. You do not have to upload that document if we haven't made it required, but in some industries, we do have that as a requirement. Licenses and tickets and qualifications, you can actually have the employee add in their driver's licenses, for example. And then upload our driver's license as well. And what that will do is it will store it on the employee's record. So if they've got a white card or a blue card or any other qualification or license that is relevant to their role, as long as they're entering that expiry date and the type, then we can get a report on expiring licenses as well. So I'm just going to say that we've applied for a tax file number. We're full-time. So this does all of the questions that are required by Single Touch Payroll on their declaration form. Which, as you know, can be daunting for somebody who hasn't worked before. So then they sign that declaration. Every time they sign a declaration, it says the date and time stamp and the IP address that it came from. So that will always be kept in their onboarding details. Bob Smith, thank you. You can see it does actually pick up the bank name when you put in the BSB number. So if that is an invalid BSB number, it won't let them proceed. The same with tax file numbers, that it does actually validate them as you go. Now, I don't know my super fund, so I'm skipping that at the moment. You can see that these are outlined in red, so we do have to put in our contact details for our next of kin. And then it shows us that employment agreement that we actually uploaded during that process. And we do have to say that we have read it and we agree to it. And then we say that everything here is true and correct. And then the last document that we added into there shows on the very last page. And we can submit that. So what happens now is the employee gets some information saying that they have been successfully onboarded. And then when we go into our onboarding status, we will see that we have now completed the onboarding in here. So if we go across now to our advanced onboarding, you can see that we have actually onboarded a new employee, number 47 here. And that employee goes straight into advanced. So at the moment, they are set as inactive. So there are defaults that are set up in advanced people, and it may be that the pay group is not what you need, or it may be that you need to change a posting class, or say that they're entitled to leave loading. So there are some settings that you can change on here, but for the most part, those defaults are fairly good. So if we mark him now as onboarded and active, and that employee can have their standard pay set up now. In the case that we've got here at the moment, we don't actually have the superannuation fund in there because we have no super funds in our advanced tenant. But if I had provided superannuation details and a fund, it would add that super guarantee line into that standard pay for you. And all you really need to do is add in your leave accruals. So that's probably as quick as it can possibly get as far as advanced goes. So that does all of those employee screens. And then some of you will probably notice that the pay groups has actually been moved into a tab here, but it does populate that pay group for you and adds in all of their pay information. Okay, go back to here. Okay, so as far as timesheet processing goes, each time you get unprocessed timesheets, they will show up the top here. If we click on those timesheets and process these timesheets to the payroll, this will be only for the Melbourne branch. So we can select the entire company by selecting that upper parent company. And then there's an approval process to go through, which you can delegate out to different logons or different managers, whereby the time actually has to be approved first. So you can see these entries here that have a red line. If we click on that, you'll see that I have multiple clock in and clock out entries. So that would be a little bit of an alert for the person that's doing the payroll. In a normal system where people are clocking in and out regularly, you would have that as a blocker so that somebody had to go in and say what was the correct time that the employee worked. But for the sake of our demo, we've let those go through. So we can approve all of those time entries. There are quite a few. And they need to be authorised by the management and then committed to the payroll. So normally the last process would be for your payroll officer to come through here and add them into a pay run. So we're going to say pay test. Okay, so from there, when we go into advanced and we go into our timesheet batches, if we say import external timesheets, that will pick up our external timesheet. Now, if I just sort this. So if we have a look at our pay test, you can see that in these pays, all of the mapping is already done. Every employee in workforce management has your external employee ID. So if we have a look at these external references, they are all of our MYOB advanced people employee IDs. So they automatically map through. So when we are doing all of our mapping between workforce management and advanced, we do all of that mapping in the background of the workforce management so that all of these pay items and all of the employees already match up. There's no need to go through and do your validation on your timesheet. And then as we go into our pay run, you can have employees in a pay timesheet batch that are from different pay groups. And then when you bring them into this screen here, they'll only bring through whichever ones are relevant to the pay that you're doing.
worth mentioning, you know, that's going to be an award interpreted pay.
Correct.
So with the calculation of any overtime or additional allowances that might apply based on the payrolls, yep.
Correct. So if we have a quick look, and I won't delve too much into payrolls because it's something that you could probably spend an entire day on. Every type of employee can have a different payroll group or award, and then we can have different rules for different dates on these. So if we added another rule in here, for example, you can base that rule on working on specific days, where they haven't met their normal contracted hours and you're wanting to pay them at a different rate for that or a different pay code. If they're exceeded a number of hours in a period. So, for example, if you have an employee who works a 38-hour week and they worked 48 hours, you can either say, well, if it's over that, let's give them time and lieu accrual, or you can say if it's over that, we're not actually going to pay them, but for fatigue management, we have to record that time, then we can select the item to record that as. We can also utilise pay tags. So if, for example, there are allowances that an employee gets if they have a particular tag. So, for example, if they're entitled to a first aid allowance or something like that, and they have that tag against their employee card, then obviously we can say pay this allowance if they have that tag. On a public holiday, if they've worked a public holiday or if they haven't worked a public holiday, there are hundreds of combinations of payrolls that you can put to interpret your payroll. You can also base it on the location. So if it has a specific location or cost centre, so for example, if an employee has a different role in a different cost centre, then you can pay at a different rate. You can also tell the system to top their hours up. So if they've only clocked on and off for 30 hours and they're a permanent employee, that would increase their hours up to 38. The other area that people quite like are these ability to send an employee a document. So if, for example, it's a site plan for a job that you're going on and everybody needs to read the safety plan, for example, we can send those out to either a group of employees or a single employee. So we can send that out to everybody in the Sydney Dispatch branch. We can send it out to all of the managers, or we can send it to individual employees. And we can add as many employees in here as we want. So if I copy and I've already sent it to myself. Josh Fraser. We can then request a signature to be added to that. So that requires them to acknowledge that they have actually read that document and they understand that. And then once that has been done, it will be stored on their account prior to their employee profile. And you also get a status of what documents have not actually been sent back yet. So you'll be able to see that we have one unsigned document being sent to Joshua Fraser. So the employee app that comes along with the workforce management is really quite responsive. We have the ability to clock in and out on the app if you so please. That's an option for you. It does actually do a geostamp so that you know where they are when they're clocking in and out, so they can't clock in and out from down the pub without being found out. You also have the ability to use a built-in clock, which can be used either on a PC like this or can be on a tablet in a particular area of the company. And if I clock out on here, 90469, every employee gets a 4-digit code. So if I clock out now, it'll say my shift has ended. I can also go on a break. So if I clock back in again and clock in, I can clock off onto a break, and it will record my break times on those rosters as well. So if I clock back in and end my break. Okay, so you can clock in and out on the app as well. So if I say clock in, it will ask me all of these questions that you can set up. That can be for safety or for COVID, but we won't worry about doing that in. You also have a shift assessment, whether or not you are happy with your shift. We can apply for leave on this screen here as well. So if I put in leave for annual leave for the following week, it'll tell me how many hours I will have available after that leave and how many I have available now. You can also set up recurring leave, but hopefully none of our employees have recurring leave. So if we submit that, and as soon as we come back into our workforce management, into our leave, we'll just wait for that to sync through, that will come straight into here. So we'll have annual leave and it be pending, and that will show you then what leave we actually have left, and you can edit that information and edit the dates as well.